to chat with everyone. Sorry about that. They've changed the defaults on Zoom, so I keep forgetting to adjust that. But if you are with us here right now, go ahead in the chat, change your setting to chat with everyone, introduce yourself, let us know who you are, where you're coming from, and we're going to go ahead and jump in and get started. A few technical notes: we will be recording this session, and we'll post the recording as well as the slides on social media and in the Path to College Tennessee Resource Hub after this. So if you're watching from the future, hello. Excellent. Welcome, Julie. Thank you for introducing yourself. Guys, go ahead and keep putting your information there in the chat, and we're going to dive in. So first of all, if you are new to Path to College Tennessee workshops, my name is Carolyn Pippin. I founded Path to College in January of 2020. We are a nonprofit that provides professional development and resources and other helpful information to school counselors and other college access professionals across the state. I myself have worked in admissions at Vanderbilt. I've worked as a high school counselor at a couple different charter college prep high schools here in Nashville. I also do some independent counseling in addition to my work that I do with Path to College Tennessee. So I'll share some more information at the end of the presentation about other resources that are available through the organization. But I want to say thank you guys to all of you attendees as well as panelists who I'm going to introduce here in just a second for joining us. I know it is a very, very busy time of year. So if you're here with us live, thank you so much for joining. If you're watching the recording later on, thank you for taking the time, and definitely feel free to reach out either right now or later on if you have any questions throughout the presentation. So today we are talking about early application deadline options, which is a very timely topic as some of those early action, early decision, restrictive early action, priority scholarship, all of the different types of early deadlines are coming up on us. Some super early ones in October, but a lot of them hitting in early November. And because there are so many different options when it comes to applying to schools early, students have more options, but it can also be a lot more complicated and overwhelming than was the case way back in the day when there was just a deadline. You got your application in by that deadline and everyone was kind of on the same timeline. So we're going to talk today about all of the different early application deadline options that are available, what each of them means, how they were different from each other, the pros and cons of applying early, and all of that. And we're going to do that by talking to some fabulous panelists. So we have Jeff from Sewanee, we have Chandler from Yale, Lauren from Center, and Caroline from Belmont. And I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their schools and their admissions processes here in just a second. But I want to say thank you to these guys for joining us. If you've been watching Path to College webinars for the past couple of years, you've been doing a lot of listening to me talk. So I'm really excited to have some other people in the room, people who are really on the ground doing the admissions work right now, to be able to offer some insight into their processes and what the admissions kind of landscape is looking like in 2022. Before we jump in, if you are familiar with our workshops, I like to start with a little bit of a mic check just to make sure everybody's with us and everybody's awake and everybody's paying attention. So today is National Self-Awareness Day, according to the internet. If it's on the internet, it must be true. So the first question for all of our panelists and also for all of our attendees: what is something that you have learned about yourself this year? Could be large and sweeping and super profound, could be super small and silly, but what is something that you didn't know about yourself that you have learned about yourself this year, either this school year or this calendar year? If you are an attendee, go ahead and put your answer in the chat, and I'm going to throw it out to our panelists as well. What is something that you guys have learned about yourself this year? I have teaching experience. I will cold call if I need to.
I'll start off pretty simple. I'm actually heading into my second cycle as an admissions officer. So I have found in the past year how much I am enjoying work in this field.
Excellent. That's great. What do you love about it the most?
Connecting with the students. I'm excited to hit the road. I'm actually flying out to Tennessee in a matter of hours. So I'll be on the road for the next week, connecting with students and counselors alike.
Excellent. Amanda in the chat says she takes on too much and needs to learn how to delegate. I would imagine that probably applies to a lot of people in the room right now. So good on you for being self-aware to know that. And I challenge you to delegate something today. That is your homework. Caroline.
Yes, I was going to say something kind of along those lines. You know, I've learned that it is okay for me to set boundaries and to say no every once in a while. You know, I think we, especially in this field, we tend to just want to be, you know, yes people and just, you know, serve our students no matter the time of day or night. But it's important for us to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves as well so that we can serve our students as best as we can. So it's okay to, you know, wait until the morning to respond to that email or respond to that text message. And, you know, the world will not stop if you wait, you know, just a few hours until the morning.
Yep, absolutely. I will say one thing that I've learned about myself this year is that I cannot function before 7 a.m. That is apparently the limit. When I worked in schools, I was forced to wake up and function before that time. But now that my calendar is a little bit more flexible, I have learned that that is the limit. I cannot go before 7. Jeff, Lauren, anything to add?
Yeah, I would just say maybe this is more than the last year, and perhaps everybody on the call would say the same thing. And it's unfortunate that I would have to say this being on a Zoom call, but I really prefer having meetings in person versus having Zoom meetings. But happy to be here today to be on this call.
My only self-awareness, it's not very big, was how much I love iced coffees. And I've learned how to make my own like Starbucks iced coffees just by ordering syrup to my house. And so it's been a small thing, but it makes me really happy. So
That's amazing. Sorry if I'm making people seasick. My camera is moving around a little bit. My dog is under the desk and he just laid down on my cords and just moved all of the stuff on the desk. So sorry about that. Excellent. Feel free to keep throwing those answers in the chat. What is something that you learned about this year? And we are going to start off by just letting each of our panelists take a few minutes just to tell us about the college that they work for and the admissions process that their college uses, with some emphasis on the early application deadlines. But we're going to start with Jeff from Sewanee.
Sure. My name's Jeff. Yep. I work at Sewanee. I've actually been here 31 years. I spent 21 of those years working in the athletic department. So I had a little different experience and perspective then. And also I'm a former parent of a Sewanee student, and I have a current son at Wofford down in South Carolina. So I've been through this process as a co-pilot and a parent fairly recently. At Sewanee, we have, and feel free, Carolyn, to tell me if this is not enough, but we have 4 basically rounds of application deadlines. We have a early decision, pretty standard binding early decision. We're a Common App school, and that's the only application that we accept. Then our next round would be early action, which is essentially regular decision that happens a little bit earlier in the cycle. Our early decision deadline is November the 15th, and our early action deadline is December the 1st. We do actually have an early decision 2 in January the 15th is the deadline for that. Not very many students take advantage of that option with us, but we have that available in case Sewanee makes a way onto somebody's list late in the process and they want to make a commitment, a binding commitment. And then we have regular decision, February 1st, standard deadline. An early action regular decision, students get to wait until May the 1st before they have to decide where they want to pay a deposit.
Excellent. So we'll definitely have some follow-up questions on early action and early decision and the difference between those two things. But for counselors who are listening, who are also working with students on their college lists right now, if you could tell us a little bit more about just Sewanee in general, like what is the type of student that would be most successful in the admissions process at Sewanee?
Yeah, absolutely. Sewanee's an institution that's small. We have 1,700 students. We define ourselves as a liberal arts university. We do have one graduate program, a school of theology, but none of those students teach. And we're in a small town in rural Tennessee. And so students come here who want a fully residential, everybody lives on campus, fully experiential college experience where essentially their life revolves around what's happening academically in the classroom and then extracurricularly, and then everyone basically lives in the dorms. We do not have many, if any, off-campus options for students. And so students come here who want that. They want the residential experience. They want small classes. They want challenging academic experience. And then about a third of our students are varsity student athletes. So lots of students come here because they want Division III athletics and want that to be a big part of their experience.
Awesome. Does Sewanee have any particular like standout academic programs? Like if a student wants to study X, then they should definitely have Sewanee on their list.
Yeah, I think the couple that we would sort of name our premier programs. We've had a long history and tradition of English and creative writing at Sewanee. We have two, a young adult and an adult writing program, or writers conference in the summer that are very well known. We also have a 13,000 acre campus. I should have mentioned this earlier. So students sometimes come here because they want to hike and mountain bike on the 55 some miles worth of trails. They really like outdoor activity. But the other part of having that much land is that scientists on this campus use that 13,000 acres as a laboratory. So another program for us academically that's really strong is the natural resources, environmental studies, and forestry and geology programs.
Awesome. Thank you. I was a creative writing major, not at Sewanee, but I've heard wonderful things about that program and often send students who want to study in Sewanee's direction. So excellent. Again, we'll come back and talk a little bit more about those early action deadlines, but we're going to move on to this like tiny, like not very well known school that you guys probably haven't heard of, but it's this place called Yale. And Chandler, you want to tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, definitely. I have a fair amount of slides, so we'll kind of zip through them, Carolyn. But yeah, I'm representing Yale. Thank you so much for being here. A little bit about where we're located. We're in New Haven, Connecticut, a city of 130,000 people. So it's a smaller city, but it's still a city. And Yale is located right in the downtown area of New Haven. You can see in this aerial shot that we are a big city and a bit of a college town. You can see the taller buildings, the smaller ones. You can see the Long Island Sound in the back. There are some mountains that students like to hike in East Rock Park and such. We're located between Boston and New York. I think on the next slide, you can see exactly where we are. So we're right on the southern coast of Connecticut. If you want to keep going, Carolyn, I'll talk a little bit about our philosophy academically and extracurricularly. We like to say that Yale is and. We are looking for students who want to explore, who have multiple interests. Maybe they have an idea of what they want to study, but maybe they also want to come explore our 80 different majors on campus. So we are a research university with 13 graduate and professional schools, but also a liberal arts college. So all undergraduates are within our one liberal arts college called Yale College. And there are 6,000, a little bit more undergraduates within the college. But those students get to take advantage of the resources of a research university. Next slide. We want students to focus on the arts and sciences. So even if a student comes with a lot of STEM experience and interest, we are still going to ask that they take a writing course, an arts course. We want them to be exposed to different ideas and make connections inside the classroom and with various professors and peers on campus. We want students to explore at the surface level and dive deep into their majors. So students will major in a major. It will be about a third of the courses that they will take at Yale. And the other 2/3 is kind of wiggle room for exploration. So whether that means diving deep into another subject, double majoring, or kind of touching the surface of maybe 5, 6 different departments during their first 2 years at Yale, students have until the end of their sophomore year until they have to decide exactly what they want to study. And we are a residential community. We have 14 residential colleges. If you are a Harry Potter fan, you can think of the 4 houses, but instead of 4, we have 14. Students are randomly assigned before they even step foot on campus going into their first year into one of the 14, which each has their own tradition, color, mascot, and these are living learning communities. So students are living inside these residential colleges. Each one has a dining hall, a gym, a music practice room, and a central green courtyard. And there are faculty members, a dean, and a head of college who live inside those residential colleges and promote kind of the culture of living and learning within these smaller communities of 400 to 500 students. So these are the 14 different crests of the different residential colleges. Again, students have a lot of pride in these. So if a student is really looking and excited for the residential experience, as well as the academic one, Yale is probably a good fit. Being and belonging, we have every state, many different countries represented, many different cultures, religions. We have 4 different cultural houses on campus, 200 different student groups on campus, many different varsity sports and club sports as well. And we are kind of promoting these different groups and communities on campus and embracing diversity to the fullest as much as we can in terms of wanting students to engage with one another. Something I didn't mention regarding the res colleges is that they're randomly assigned, so it's not based on major or interest or where a student is from. So students are able to get to know one another. Embracing tradition and innovation, we want students who are going to embrace the culture here, but also find ways to innovate during their 4 years. And then another thing, you'll see the poster behind me. We want to be affordable for everyone. That's our financial aid kind of tagline. We want the experience to be affordable. So if you go to the next slide, Carolyn, just a little bit of information regarding kind of financial aid. We meet 100% of demonstrated need. We don't have any merit-based scholarships. It's all based on family need. For families that make $75,000 or less annually, there's a $0 parent share. Finally, and sorry that the text is a little odd on this slide, but our single choice early action, also known as restrictive early action, which I'm excited to talk more about, that deadline is November 1st. So it's coming up in a little over a month. And then regular decision is January 2nd. And then we accept Common App, Coalition, and then we're a Quest Bridge partner as well. There's a little QR code with some more resources if you want to grab your phones, but that's it from me about Yale for now.
Awesome, thank you. And we will definitely circle back and talk a little bit about single choice early action, which is kind of the newer of the early application deadline options and how that's different from ED and EA. But now we're going to toss it over to Lauren to learn a little bit more about Center College.
Thank you so much. Yes, my name is Lauren Samuelson. I'm Associate Director of Admission and Scholarship Programs at Center College. I'm also a Center alum, so I've been back in the office for about 4 years, so it's really fun to get to share about Center. I came to Center from South Florida, so I've been checking in on friends and family today with Hurricane Ian coming in. But just a little bit about Center. We have about 1,450 students on campus. We're fully residential as well, similar to Sewanee. We're 50-50 when it comes to in-state, out-of-state, which is helpful to know for out-of-state students as well. We are, classes are a lot smaller, 10-to-1 student to faculty ratio. So our classes average around 18. They're never bigger than 30. We are a liberal arts and sciences school. So we say that students can take a little bit of everything. They have the first 2 years to declare a major, which is really helpful for our students as well coming in. Our most popular majors are economics and finance, biology, behavioral neuroscience, politics, and international studies. But we do have about 25% of students that double major. So they have some time to get here, figure it out. And if they like a lot of things, that's great too. We have a lot of focus areas in the arts. We have a regional performing arts center on campus called the Norton Center that brings in Broadway shows, plays, events, speakers. Students get to go to all those events for free, which I'm always very jealous of. This year we have Hairspray, Cats in Chicago coming, and they always bring in very world-renowned events. When I was a first-year student at Center, we had the vice presidential debate in 2012. So they're always trying to one-up themselves and bring in really cool things. And that's where like our theater, music classes are held. Students can be involved with that, whether they're a major or minor, which is really nice too. We also have the Jones Visual Arts Center on campus, which is really nice for visual arts. So like drawing and painting, ceramics, the list goes on. We also are known for glass blowing nationally. So we do have a glass blowing program here at Center, which is definitely unique. I'm very afraid of the fire that goes along with glass blowing, but we do have a lot of students that come and do that. And so Center is very much a good place to be if you have several different interests. If students are involved in arts and want to keep doing that in college, I think we're a really good spot for that. Similar to Sewanee, we have a lot of student athletes. We're Division III for athletics. About 40 to 45% of our campus are involved with athletics. I was a student athlete here at Center, and I loved the Division III experience because I really felt like I got to do everything. You know, my academics came first. It is very academically rigorous, but our students who are athletes get to take advantage of all the opportunities on campus. And so we're in the Southern Athletic Association, have a lot of different teams on campus, but with out-of-state students, I see a lot of students coming in for lacrosse, baseball, swimming, and diving, football, a lot of different programs. So that's big for us as well. Another big facet of Center is our study abroad program. I'll be honest, that's kind of how I found out about Center and so I got on my radar, but we send about 85% of our students abroad. We have semester-long trips that go to 10 different locations: China, Japan, Northern Ireland, Scotland, France, England, Germany, Mexico, to name a few. We just added Bhutan this year. And the semester-long programs are the same cost as living on campus. And so the scholarship, financial aid, everything carries over for those trips. That was how I convinced my family to let me move to France for 3 months. But you just have to buy the flight for those. And typically you go with a group of Center students and a faculty member. So you really get a tight-knit experience while exploring a new part of the world. We also have our Center term. You'll find if you come to Center, we name a lot of our things on campus Center something. But Center term is in January, where our students only take one class for 3 weeks. It's also a really popular time to go abroad. And those are very unique courses. They study volcanoes in New Zealand. They study monkeys in Barbados. They go to Thailand, Fiji, South Africa. I always get very jealous in January, but those are also really popular for study abroad. And in addition to study abroad, we also now have study away, where you spend a full semester in a different city and kind of focus more on an internship and get that real world application while also taking Center courses. Those are in Washington, D.C., New York City, which is a partnership with Sewanee, and then Lake Tahoe. We just bought a campus in Lake Tahoe as well. So a lot of different ways to explore the world, but Center definitely has a tight-knit campus feel for students that are looking for that. Everyone living on campus, over 90 different clubs, 2,000 campus events. That was something I really enjoyed and that I think our students really enjoy too. We're located in the center of Kentucky, which is how we got our name. We're in Danville. It's about 3 hours north of Nashville. Danville is about 45 minutes from Lexington, which is helpful for students flying in as well. And Danville, I always tell people, really matches the vibe of campus. It is a small city in Kentucky. Downtown's right off campus, but they have local festivals and events, and there's coffee shops and restaurants and a yoga studio. And so a lot of places for students to get to know the community as well. For application plans, we're strictly on the Common App. That's the only application we accept. We do a holistic admission process. So we look at everything that students submit. We do read everything on the Common App, which is something that I really enjoy about the months of December and January. But we will accept only the Common App. We have early decision, early action, and regular decision. Our deadlines are very similar to Sewanee as well. The early decision is November 15th, early action is December 1st, and regular decision is January 15th. So early decision has grown for us a lot in the past 4 years and 5 years since I've been back at Center. I'm guessing that will continue to grow. And so if you have students that know Center is a good fit, I definitely recommend early decision. We also have something called a pre-application that students can fill out starting the end of their junior year to get an estimate on admission, scholarship, and financial aid, which helps our students kind of decide if early decision is the right fit for them. Early actions are most popular, due by December 1st. If you have a student that's looking at Center and they know that they're applying one of our non-binding plans, I always try to recommend to push them to December 1st if at all possible, just because you hear back a lot sooner from us when it comes to admission, scholarship, and financial aid. So, but yeah, that's pretty much a quick rundown. Carolyn, if you have anything else you'd like me to touch on, just let me know too.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I grew up in Central Kentucky, so Center's always been on my radar, and it's I talk about it to my students a lot because I find that schools that are particularly smaller private schools that are out of state but still pretty close tend to be ones that our students kind of miss. So I always tell students if Sewanee's on your radar, Center should be too, and vice versa. Very similar experiences. Excellent. And last but not least, I'm going to pass it over to Caroline to tell us a little bit about Belmont.
Right. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me today. I'm happy to share a few quick facts about Belmont University. My name is Carolyn, and I serve as an assistant director there at Belmont. I've been there for about 10 months now. So we are considered a mid-sized school. We've got just under 9,000 student population, total population. With our undergraduate students, we've got about 7,500 students. So located right in the heart of Nashville. So big city, but small town feel with our campus community. We do provide a tight-knit community there on campus for our students. We have an average class size of about 18 students. You wouldn't have any more than 40 students in a class at any given time. So we are looking for students who really thrive in that smaller learning environment. We want students who will be comfortable opening up in the classroom, sharing their unique perspectives with each other, learning from each other, and also building meaningful relationships with their professors who are all professionals in their field and are eager to share with our students their connections and just open up doors for their future. We bring students from all across the US. Even though we are in Nashville, 75% of our student population actually comes from outside the state of Tennessee. So students coming from all over, eager to just connect and make new relationships and just really get involved in our campus community. We're a very collaborative campus. So our students get involved on campus and also in the Nashville community. So we are looking for students who excuse me, are eager to get involved and serve others both on campus and off. I do want to talk a little bit about the fact that we are a Christian institution because that is something that a lot of our students will ask us about. We do have a Christ-centered mission and some of our students do come to Belmont because they are looking to connect and grow in their Christian faith. However, you do not have to be Christian to attend Belmont. So we do accept students from all faith backgrounds, including students of no faith backgrounds. We are not there to force any particular belief upon anyone, but mostly to serve others and serve our communities through Christ-like values. We do have courses that students are required to take, 2 classes in biblical studies that are taught from a historical background. And then we have optional chapel services on campus. So our chapel services are not required for our students. We are an NCAA Division I school. I get asked that questions from students a lot as well. They want to know if we have sports at Belmont, and we do. And on the next slide, Carolyn, we will list some of our athletic teams that you will find at Belmont, as well as some of our more unique majors. So we are known for our music majors nationally. That's a big draw for us. Music business is going to be our largest major on campus. Our performance-based majors are also some of our larger programs, but nursing is actually our second largest major. Being in Nashville, Music City, USA, of course, it makes sense that music business is our largest major. We're also the healthcare capital of the US, so nursing gets a lot of students for us as well. But you'll see some of our other unique majors listed on the screen there. We're a very creative campus, so we do bring students that are interested in music, the performing arts, studio art. We've got architecture and interior design. We've also got strong programs in STEM for students interested in the STEM majors, as well as very strong business programs, education programs, just a little something for everyone there. And we continue to look and see where the need is and where we are going to need qualified professionals and just kind of be very forward thinking. And so we continue to add new majors as we see that there is a need. And so you'll see on the bottom corner of your screen some of our newer majors that we've added recently. We're very excited to bring in a public advocacy program for students who are very dedicated in their communities and fighting for social justice concerns. Public advocacy would be a great program for those students to look into. We've also brought back our special education program within our College of Education. So we are excited to bring that and offer that for our students, as well as programs in illustration, supply chain management, and film and television writing. A little bit about our application process. We are a rolling admission school, so we don't do early decisions, early deadline, anything like that. Our application opens for seniors on August 1st each year. And so students can apply anytime within the application cycle from August 1st, really through June 30th. We do have a priority deadline for top scholarship consideration of December 1st. So we do have some general academic merit scholarships that we award, again, on that rolling basis throughout the application cycle. But for students to be considered for our top scholarships, they would want to apply by December the 1st of their senior year.
Excellent. Thank you guys for just going through quick summaries there. I'm gonna go ahead and stop share as we go into the panel portion of today's workshop. I would love to throw out some questions specifically around early application deadlines, but if you are here with us live and you have questions that you want to pose, please feel free to put those in the chat. And I will pass them along as well. But I want to start by just kind of going through and asking you guys to delve a little bit more into detail about your early decision options. So Jeff and Lauren, you guys both offer both early action and early decision. Could you guys, what are both of you, go into a little bit more detail about like what the difference is between those two programs?
Yeah, I'm happy to start. Early decision is for us an option for students who essentially have already made up their minds. They've wandered through the college search process. They probably visited colleges. We encourage students to make sure that they've had the financial conversation with their parents or guardians. And they understand that Sewanee is where they want to be and that it could be potentially a viable option financially. Oh, some of those students will actually do a merit scholarship pre-read with us, so they do have that information as well. But it's binding, and so students fill out the Common App early decision agreement form, and they agree that if they're admitted to Sewanee, that they'll withdraw their applications from other schools and will pay a deposit and enroll. Whereas early action, when I describe that very specifically to students and families, I honestly wish we would change the name of that to early regular decision, because I think there are some students when they get in the Common App and they're checking the box of which round they would like to apply, and they see early decision and early action. The early word on there is scary, and so they might choose regular decision even if they're applying today, well before the early action deadline. So early action for us really is an early version of regular decision. We've started reading those applications already. We're a notification school, so everybody gets their decision based on when they apply in their round. But early action allows them to initiate the process early, get a decision from us early, and yet still wait for the May 1st deadline to make their choice.
Lauren, anything to add? And also, if these counselors are working with students that are applying to schools that have both early action and early decision, like what would you recommend in terms of helping them to make that decision?
Yeah, very similar, I'm going to say. We see early decision as being a huge commitment to us, because if you're admitted, we're planning on you committing to come. But early decision is a great option for students who have already made up their mind, especially for us students who've been working with us through the process for a while already. They know they might have already made a verbal commitment to athletics. Early decision is a good decision for those students. With our pre-application, we can give them the comfort of knowing what their merit scholarship is going to be and the financial aid, which kind of helps them through that process. And that's something new we've added in the past few years. Pre-application is open for any student, not just athletes, anyone who's really interested in center and wanting to know more about it by the end of their junior year and has those grades. For us, early decision does give you priority consideration for financial aid. And we want to honor that commitment students are making to us by giving them the best consideration we can. And so there is a little bit more support and help through that process. And it pretty much gives you the best package that we can give a student. And so there are benefits of that for early decision. It's not that we won't give you great consideration with early action, but we don't start reading early action until December 1st. And so when we're reading early decision in November, those are the only students we're reading at that time. And so it's able for us to give them as much consideration as possible. And so they're not really competing with our early action pool. And so that makes it a little bit different.
Awesome. So early action or early decision have both been around for a little bit, but kind of the new kid in town in regards to early deadlines is the single choice early action or restrictive early action. Chandler, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so this is our early option at Yale. Restricted, we call it single choice early action, also known as restrictive early action. We are saying, if you want to apply early, that's fantastic. We're not going to apply any different criteria than regular decision during the early round, but you can have a decision by the middle of December. It is not binding, it's early action, it's not binding. So students who apply early have until May 1st to make a decision if they are admitted. But it is restrictive, which means that if you are applying to Yale early, we should be the only private institution that you are applying to in an early round. Now, there are a few different exceptions to this rule. And so I'm going to drop a link inside the chat to our single choice early action page. But for example, you can apply to early decision 2 programs, but it depends on when the notification is going to be. You can apply to any non-binding rolling admission program. So some of the exact details are within the within that link. So check that out. But essentially, we are not binding, but restrictive in the sense that if you're applying early, you should only really be applying to Yale.
And to the extent that you know, there are a number of schools that offer some version of single choice or restrictive early action, typically the more hyper competitive schools, such as Yale. Are the policies and the exceptions that you were talking about generally consistent across schools, or do students need to like do research for each of the schools to make sure that they're meeting all of the requirements there?
Yeah, it's important to look at each school's requirements. I mean, the kind of stipulations that we have in terms of the exceptions on this page are going to vary from some of our peers. So definitely just make sure you're kind of keeping the rules in mind in terms of what programs you're applying under, especially if it's restrictive or single choice.
Gotcha. Excellent. Thank you. And then Caroline, you mentioned that Belmont offers like a priority or a scholarship deadline within your rolling admissions process. Could you talk a little bit more about what exactly that means?
Sure. So we have some general academic merit scholarships that we award that range from $3,000 to $12,000 a year. And students can receive those general merit scholarships at any point throughout the application cycle. But then we also have our full ride scholarships, so full tuition, full housing. And then we also have some departmental scholarships that are offered through programs such as our College of Business, our School of Music, our art programs, and our architecture programs. And so for those scholarships, students do need to apply by December the 1st to be considered for those, because then we'll begin our review for those top scholarship considerations throughout the month of January. And so we do need to have those applications in by that December the 1st deadline for that top scholarship consideration. But again, if a student decides to apply after that, we will still consider them for some of our general merit scholarships.
And just kind of a follow-up there in terms of rolling admissions in general, could you talk a little bit about the benefit of submitting your application early in the process in terms of like chances of admission as well as financial aid in general?
Sure. So the benefits there to applying by that December 1st is truly going to be the financial benefits. You'll be considered for as much as we are able to consider you for. Also, we of course encourage students to submit their FAFSA by December the 1st as well, so that we can give them a full idea of their financial package. And we can get that to them as early as possible so that they can begin to make their decisions. We do ask students who are admitted to let us know by May 1st if they have chosen to attend Belmont. And there is an enrollment deposit that they will pay by May 1st to let us know they've chosen Belmont, and that'll open up their portal to sign up for housing on campus, and then also our new student orientation. So making that decision by that May 1st, make sure that we are able to guarantee them a spot on our campus. Applicants who might decide later on that their plans have changed, and so they decide to apply to Belmont later in the application cycle. If they do miss that May 1st deadline, then we at that time can't guarantee them housing on campus, and may not be able to guarantee them their date preference for new student orientation. So certainly applying early has its benefits in terms of financial aid, priority consideration for housing, and those orientation dates. But we, of course, also want to give flexibility to students who just may have things come up that require them to change their plans and decide, later in the cycle that maybe they do want to consider Belmont, and that will still be an option for them.
Awesome, thank you. I want to throw the same question out to the rest of the panel, and Jeff, we can start with you. What are the benefits to applying early, whether it's early action or early decision, in terms of chances of admission, financial aid, any other benefits?
Yeah, good question. So the early decision applicants have a little bit of benefit in terms of their potential for admission. The admission rate for our early decision pool tends to be 20% higher typically than the regular decision pool. Regular decision, we admit about 45%. Early decision, we typically admit about 65%. Actually, the academic profile of those two groups looks very similar. And so usually the early decision students who are committed are also fit within the academic profile that we're considering. So there's a little bit of an advantage in terms of admission. The only other advantage really in early decision and early action is ending the process earlier in the cycle. And so either one, being able to commit through early decision and pay your deposit and be done with the process, or in the case of early action, receiving admission decision, merit scholarship information, and if you completed your forms, need-based financial aid earlier in the cycle. We actually use the same merit scholarship protocol and need-based financial aid protocol for all of our rounds. So there's no benefit in merit scholarship to applying early versus regular or early action. And there's no difference in what we do with need-based financial aid. We meet 100% of demonstrated need for every one of our rounds.
You also mentioned, Jeff, that Sewanee offers both early decision 1 and early decision 2. Is there a difference in that kind of admissions bump rate between the two? Like, how should a student decide which of those early decision deadlines to go for?
Yeah, I think because there are schools that do have which I'm learning this acronym, the SCEA option. I didn't realize that's what it was called, that are restrictive on where schools can apply. If a student hears early decision from another institution or SCEA from another institution and they are denied, but they want to, we were not clear number 2 and they want to make a commitment to the early decision 2, that's typically where that happens. Sometimes those are also recruited student athletes, some of them who are maybe waiting for a Division I athletic scholarship offer in the fall, and that doesn't happen. And they want to make a commitment to a coach and to a team and apply early decision 2. But what I will say is that pool for us is incredibly small. We may be talking about 10 to 20 applications versus close to 200 for the early decision round. And that's in a pool of 5,000 applications total.
Excellent, thank you. Lauren, what about center? Advantages for applying early?
So I talked a little bit about the early decision advantages, but early action for us just helps earlier. We send out typically admission and scholarship decisions by the end of December. And so just that peace of mind for students to kind of know where they sit with us. I will also say we moved we have 3 premier scholarship programs, which are full cost and full tuition plus. We have Grissom, which is just for first generation college students. We have Brown Fellows, which is for students academically above and beyond. And we have Lincoln Scholars for students who kind of want to change the world, which I know is a broad idea. But Lincoln and Brown do have an additional application, and those are now due by December 1st, which is the same as our early action deadline. So for students who are really interested in some of our most competitive scholarships, you do have to apply by December 1st. You could do early action or regular decision, but if you're going to apply by December 1st, unless you're doing a single choice early action and you can't apply early action, I would recommend early action just because you hear back sooner from us on the other pieces of the application. So the only priority financial aid is going to come for some of our other scholarship programs, like for our New Horizons program, which is our diversity, equity, and inclusion scholarship that does have priority financial aid consideration as well. That there's no benefit of applying early except for just being in the process earlier. So I always try to push December 1st if at all possible, even if you're applying regular decision, just because you get in our process earlier. It does help when we're kind of considering all those options.
Excellent, good to know. And then Chandler, so the single choice early action is not binding, but you are essentially giving up the opportunity to apply early action or boost your chances at other schools. So what's the benefit to that process for you guys?
Yeah, so the benefit on our end is that we get to start reading some of the 50,000 files a little bit sooner instead of cramming them in. And for students, if they feel like Yale is a good fit and they want to apply, if they're feeling like their essays are in good shape, then that is a good time to apply. We do see that most of the students who are applying early are those that are going to be most competitive. They've done their research, they know that they're a good fit. Counselors think that they're a good fit. So they apply early, and we like to respond to the talent that we see in that pool, but we do not use any different criteria from regular decision. We don't track demonstrated interest. So students coming to campus, attending our virtual sessions, applying early, we do not consider that interest in the decision-making process. So it's just to have a decision in their hands a little bit earlier, even if it's a rejection, it allows them to have some more focus on the rest of their process and kind of move on from thinking about Yale.
Excellent. Next question, I'm just going to throw it out there for anybody to respond to, but are there any instances in which we just talked about like benefits of applying early, any instances where you would encourage a student not to apply early, to wait until that regular decision deadline?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in here. We do have some families or students sometimes who are considering early decision, but they're not able to really get the information they need in terms of cost or affordability, which typically means there's a complicated financial situation within their family, whether they're separated parents, separated or divorced, or there are other pieces of the financial picture that just aren't clear, meaning it's not 2 incomes, 3 children, 1 household. That's pretty easy to figure out through an aid estimator or a net price calculator. So some of those families, and I would say in my case, I work as an athletic liaison. So a lot of times it's coaches working with families. And if you don't have that clear picture and don't understand what the actual cost is going to be, it's a really good idea to wait, because the last thing you want to do is to be admitted, then realize you can't afford it, and you just have to back out on the early decision agreement, which just becomes awkward.
I always advise students too, if they're doing early decision, to make sure that they've really thought through where they're going, how far away they're going, what that's actually going to feel like and look like. I think students often get caught up in their first offer, whether athletically or admission wise. And I just really recommend that they have serious conversations with their family and think realistically of how far away they're going and what they're doing, and if that feels like the right fit. Because early decision, early single choice, early action, those are bigger commitments. I know those are a little bit different, but just to think realistically and not just go for the first thing that kind of pops up.
I would say to make sure that the application, the writing is ready to go. If you need more time with it, you need to read it through. You need to get a counselor, a teacher, a parent to read through, and haven't had the time by November 1st. That's okay. Wait until January 2nd. Totally fine by us.
Caroline, anything to add in terms of like when you would encourage student in a rolling process to maybe like hold off and wait a little bit longer?
Yeah, I would say wouldn't so much encourage them to hold off, but I would want to make sure that they know that we can always update their information. So if they do apply prior to December the 1st and then they receive their grades for that fall semester and their GPA has gone up, or they receive a new ACT score that might put them into consideration for a higher scholarship level, they can always send us new information and we'll update that and we'll reconsider their scholarship level.
Awesome, great
point. A lot
point.
of times students will think that they don't want to apply until they have, those fall grades or until they have the ACT score that they're shooting for. But I do want to make sure that they know we can always update their information when we receive new stuff. So
how would you recommend that information be sent? Should they email their admissions counselor? Should they just add it, like upload it to their profile? Like, what does that process look like?
Yeah, they should definitely email their admissions counselor just to notify us that there is new information that's going to be coming in. And then they will have their school counselor send us their official transcript or request their test scores be sent through the testing agency. But it is always helpful to email the admissions counselor and just give us a heads up that there's new information coming in.
Excellent. So I know that one thing that I'm certainly running up against working with students at this point in the process, you have a student who has maybe 10 or 15 colleges on their list. Some of them are long shots, some of them are safeties, some of them are somewhere in between, hopefully, if they've created a balanced list. But every single one of them offers some type of early deadline, and those deadlines are coming up. They've got about a month left before those first ones really hit, right? What advice would you give students in terms of deciding which schools on their list to go for those early deadlines, as opposed to waiting for regular decision? Should they be focusing on their reach schools? Should they be focusing on their top choices? Like, what would you advise there in terms of strategy?
That's a hard question. But I do think it's what I would tell a student is to be realistic about their top choices. It might not be just the reach schools, and like, what's the best fit for the student? Where do they see themselves the most, especially if they've gone and visited some of those schools? If you're not doing a single choice early action and you're able to apply early action more places, I would recommend that, just because you're going to hear back sooner. And that's going to really help in the decision process if you're figuring those things out. But if you have like that one school that is your dream school, you want to be there, that's the place you want to be more than anything. That's where early decision is going to be a factor to consider too. But it should be exciting, but also it is time to think strategic and to think realistic about that too.
Yeah, I think I would just reiterate what Lauren said. I mean, especially seeing the campus. You might have a dream school that's a reach that you think I have to apply early decision. And the reality is, for most students, that's going to help them, or an earlier application deadline could help their chances for admission. But it certainly is scary to do that if you haven't been on campus and you haven't visited and you're not really sure if you're wanting to commit. Some students will wait until they get an admission decision to visit, and that certainly is fair, especially with an early decision option. But if it's binding, then you're potentially stuck. So the visiting piece is a big part of it. So in the next 2 weeks, get a visit in.
Last question I'm going to throw out here. I want to, if I can, give people a few minutes back in their day here at the end of today's presentation. But I know that, and I'm making assumptions, your all's demographics and application data make a little bit different, but in general, students who tend to apply early to schools are often higher income students, are often white students, and a lot of the counselors that are listening to this are working with lower income students, minority students, immigrant students. So what would be kind of your pitch to those students to take advantage of these early deadline options and really kind of even the playing field as much as possible?
For us, one thing I always try to encourage to counselors and to students I meet with is that applying early does not take you out of our process for competitive scholarships. I mean, we see that if you're applying early decision or even early action, we love that you're interested, and we love that's a compliment to us as a college. And so we do consider you at the same playing field for some of our biggest merit scholarships and the competitive scholarships. And so it's not, I think some people get nervous. It's like, okay, if I apply, because it's different at every school. And I know that can be complicated, but at center and smaller liberal arts schools, probably similar to us, it's not going to take you out of the running for some of our biggest scholarships. And so we're trying to increase access with our early decision program. And that's one reason we're using the pre-application. That's not binding by any means. The pre-application takes students about 10 minutes, and we can get back to them in like a week with a decision on it's kind of like an idea of a decision on what they're going to get scholarship and financial aid wise. And so that's something that we're trying to do, because we see that too. And we're trying to be more transparent and increase access to our early plans too.
I'd say we're at Yale lead blind in our admissions process. So we're making decisions without having to think about, how this student or how Yale will be able to afford the student. We promise that we're going to meet 100% of demonstrated needs. So if a student applies early, they are, we are making our decisions for the competitive students that we want. And then the financial aid office is going to give an award at the same time that we give the admission decision in mid-September. So you could have a fantastic aid package as well as acceptance by the middle of September, or sorry, middle of December.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that I think it's important for some. I would feel like some families are a little less aware of the resources that are available at colleges. I mean, not only the 5 of us that are on the screen, but countless numbers of admissions officers and financial aid officers out there who are happy to help and walk families through the process. And it's always rewarding for me. I mean, I grew up on college campuses and have worked on one for 31 years. It was a pretty easy process for me as a parent and my wife to help our 2 children walk through the college selection process. The vast majority of the world out there doesn't have the insight in the background that we do. And so to be able to help someone learn about this process and to understand the complicated pieces for the financial aid office to help them, don't hesitate to reach out. If you're working with families, please just encourage them to reach out to us. We're in the sales business, and so the return call time should be quick and responsive in the admissions world. And so you're going to reach out to someone and hopefully hear back really quickly and help a family that maybe isn't as comfortable dealing with this process so early.
Yeah, and definitely echo those thoughts as well. And the only thing I would add there is that if there are ways that we can work together, the admissions counselors, the school counselors, to connect with students earlier, maybe even before the senior year, so that students can really have a good idea of what to expect and how to best prepare for when senior year hits in that application process. I've done several presentations over the past couple of weeks to freshman groups. And that's part of my role, and my goal and my position is to make sure that I'm connecting with students earlier on, especially those who are first generation, our immigrant youth, so that we can make sure that we're doing our part to help them fully understand the admissions process here and kind of that planning process of where they should potentially be at any given point throughout their high school journey. And then once they hit, summer before senior year, that senior year, they're ready to go and they know kind of those deadlines that they need to meet.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I do want to also acknowledge that just kind of how the cookie crumbled this time around in terms of panelists. We do have an overrepresentation of small liberal arts kind of tinted schools as well as PWIs. I just want to name that a lot of the stuff that we talked about around early application deadlines also apply to larger state schools, also apply to HBCUs and HSI. So this is definitely not an admissions process that is specific to this particular type of school. It just kind of so happened that these are the panelists that we got this time around. But I wanted to acknowledge that. I also want to say thank you again to our panelists for joining us today, everyone who is joining us live in terms of attendees, and also those of you who are listening in the future. I hope all is well. I want to throw in a quick plug. I'll send out an email to all attendees and registrants later on with the recording and slides and resources and all of that stuff. But we are launching a counselor directory on the Path to College Tennessee website in just a few days. I'll send out a link to sign up for that, just a chance for counselors to add themselves to the directory so you guys can start to connect with each other and build a little bit more of a network across Tennessee cities and learn more from each other. So more information to come on that, but I really do encourage you to sign up for that if you're willing to hear from other counselors and get questions and share some of your top secrets and strategies when it comes to this work. But thank you again, everyone, for joining. Please go outside at some point today and enjoy the nice fall, lovely weather wherever you are. I'll send out that follow-up email a little bit later today. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day. And thank you guys so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.